This is my sister's 2018 Hyundai Tucson, and it has about 118,000 miles when the problem that it has kind of popped up. Now, the specific problem that this car has is not only specific to this car, it applies to almost any car on the road. So it doesn't matter which car you're driving. If you experience these symptoms where it's like loss of power, doesn't want to accelerate, and possibly even no check engine light, this video can apply to your car. Now, when she first started to have this issue, she was driving on the expressway and she said it just felt like it lost all of its power. It started to stall and the engine actually just turned off. So she had to pull over. She got me on FaceTime and I was able to walk her through a few steps, some easy things that she could check. So one of the first things that I pointed out to her that she should check is the air filter to see if it's dirty or restricted in any way. As soon as she pulled out the air filter, she also pulled out a mouse's nest. So yes, that is a major restriction. If the engine can't breathe, if it can't suck in air, then the engine's not going to be able to perform. So that right there, again, applies to any car. So now that we got the mouse's nest cleaned out and a brand new air filter installed, the car actually started right up and it was drivable now, but she said it's still not 100%. It feels like it doesn't have all of its power and it won't go over certain speeds. So a few days later, she brought it over to me, and that's where we are now. We have to diagnose what's going on with this car. And again, like I said at the beginning, the problem that this car ends up having applies to any car. There's no check engine light, no fault codes, yet she said it won't go over a certain speed. So you can see I'm doing about 52, and I'm gonna try to accelerate and let's see what happens. Pedal all the way to the floor. It does not want to accelerate. Like this thing has no power at all. It almost has symptoms of a clogged catalytic converter. So it's not just a certain miles per hour, because I got off the expressway, I was doing about 35 and I floored it and still the same thing. It did not want to accelerate. I could hear that rattling sound coming from the engine. This really does have symptoms of a restricted exhaust. And not to mention, this engine sounds really loud. I know these 4-cylinders aren't that powerful, but let's see, I'm doing about 33 right now. I'm gonna go ahead and floor it. That's a lot of noise, and this thing isn't going anywhere. It is not accelerating. So I just got back to the garage. One thing I want to check with a temperature gun is the temperature before and after the catalytic converter. So right at the base right there in front, you can see 440. Okay, and right after the catalytic converter, about 250. So 250 and 440 right in front of it. So just for shits and giggles, I removed the air intake just to double check. Even though we checked it last time, I even pulled off the throttle body and cleaned it out. But I opened up the butterfly right here and had a quick look inside of there. Everything looks normal. Anyway, I went ahead and removed the upstream oxygen sensor. So here it goes right here. Isn't that interesting how it looks just dark on one side and the other side is completely white? It's really interesting. Anyways, like I said, it's the upstream oxygen sensor. So let me go ahead and put my pressure gauge on it, and we should not have any back pressure if there's no restriction in the exhaust. If there's any type of back pressure, then yes, there is some sort of a restriction, whether it's with the catalytic converter or it's with the mufflers, or muffler because it's a 4-cylinder. So I got my back pressure tester connected. You can see it down there. Now you don't want to leave this thing running for too long, because the connector right there on the exhaust manifold gets so hot it'll start to melt your tool. So really only run this thing for a few seconds. That's all it takes. I don't have the air box connected, but this thing does not have a mass airflow sensor on it, so it should be fine to turn it on without the air box. Let's go ahead and start it up. Like I said, we should not see any PSI right here. That's not looking good already. I want to raise the RPM, but I can't do it from here. All right, so I got someone to help me. They're gonna go ahead and start up the engine right now. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, raise RPM. A little bit more. Okay. All right, turn it off. Yep, it's a done deal. Thing has a restricted exhaust. I got my money on the catalytic converter. All right, so that's it. I'm gonna go ahead and start putting everything back together, clean up all my tools, and I'm happy I got down to the bottom of this. Unfortunately, I'm not gonna be the one fixing it because I don't do exhaust work. This thing has to go to a shop or whatever. The crappy part is that if it is a catalytic converter, which I'm assuming it is, it's the more likely thing to be bad. You know, we're basically getting rid of a OEM part, and my sister is not going to put an OEM part on this thing. She's going to go to like a muffler shop and, you know, for 400 and 500 bucks, whatever, put on some cheap part that may end up throwing like a P0420. But at least it'll fix the drivability issue. So it's 2 days later and I still have my sister's Hyundai Tucson here. She's on vacation right now, so the car is staying with me for about a week. I told her what's going on with the car, what it needs. Basically, it needs to go to a muffler shop and get the catalytic converter replaced. I told her she may get a P0420 code because the quality of the converters that come out of muffler shops just aren't good. And I know she's not going to pay no $1,200 to $1,500 at the dealer to put a converter on this thing. So that's where most people end up going. Unfortunately, the car may end up throwing a code because of it. So I figured, you know what, if the converter is no good, it doesn't hurt to try to disconnect the catalytic converter from the rest of the exhaust manifold. We can't completely take it off, but I want to see if I could drop it enough so we can look directly into that catalytic converter. All right, so here goes the catalytic converter right here. You can see we have a flange up front, and back here is just welded onto the rest of the system. Those are the nuts I'm gonna have to remove right there. So what I want to do first is remove the oxygen sensor so we don't take a chance of damaging it. We'll get that out of the way. And then it looks like I might have to remove this shield right here. So it turns out I didn't have to remove the oxygen sensor. I have enough slack in the wires to just leave it alone. So with the catalytic converter disconnected, honestly, it's not as bad as I was expecting to see. But that definitely should not be like that. You can see all those little particles. I don't know what the heck that is. It looks like something's embedded into the filter.
Remember we had the issue with the mouse making a nest in the air intake tube? I think it's possible that some of the mouse's nest was able to go into the intake side through the engine, and if it doesn't get completely burned, it gets kicked out the exhaust valves and ends up getting caught in the filter material of the catalytic converter. So I think that's what we're looking at. It's like little pieces of the mouse's nest. I could be wrong, but that's just my thoughts.
I was expecting a completely melted, like honeycomb, if you know what I mean. I'm sure some of you guys have seen that before. But yeah, that's not good. The catalytic converter should not be like that. That's basically like clogged pores if you think about it. So, I mean, it would be pretty sweet. Let me go check the back of the car and see if there's somewhere to disconnect the rear muffler and reconnect the front of the car, or this right here. And I just want to rule out that the muffler itself isn't clogged before we do something expensive like a catalytic converter. I just don't want to take a chance on this, so I want to be really thorough with my inspection and make sure it's not a clogged muffler. All right, so at this point I got the muffler disconnected. You can see it right there. And up front I've gone ahead and reconnected the catalytic converter back to the exhaust manifold. So at this point, the only thing we're eliminating from the system is the actual muffler itself. I want to go out for a test drive now, and if the problem is still there, we may have to just completely take off the catalytic converter. I mean, technically it's already off. It's unbolted from the muffler. We had it unbolted from the exhaust manifold. The only thing that was holding it on was the rubber hangers. So, you know, we're like one step away from just removing the entire thing. So yeah, let's go out for a test drive first. So I decided to skip the test drive and just go right back to our pressure gauge, how we did the first time, to see that there was a problem with the exhaust restriction in the first place. Mainly because it's a pain in the butt to shuffle cars around and then spend some time driving around, see if the car's still doing the same thing. On top of that, it's kind of illegal to leave kids alone unattended, so there's that. As you can see, I got the gauge reconnected. I got it sitting on the windshield right there, and it's connected right back to where we had it before. So like I said, the muffler is disconnected. The only thing that's connected right now is the catalytic converter and that thing in the middle, which looks like a resonator. So If the restriction is still here, then we're pulling off that whole pipe. Since I've been rolling around underneath the car, I put a towel down right here on the driver's seat so I don't dirty her car, because this car is actually really nice and clean on the inside. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and raise the RPM. Oh yeah. Okay, I'm gonna shut it off. So the restriction is still there. Disconnecting the muffler at the back didn't do anything. Let's go ahead and drop that whole pipe. So it's starting to look like I'm right on my diagnosis with this catalytic converter. All right, so this is the front of the catalytic converter, obviously, and where the downstream oxygen sensor goes, that right there, hopefully you can see it, the back of the filter inside of there. You can see, so the catalytic converter is literally just this section right here. So this is in front, and the sensor would sit behind the filter material. So on a good filter that's not restricted, you should be able to put a light source in behind here where this O2 sensor would go, and you should be able to see the light on the front side. So let's see if we could do that. I got a flashlight right here. I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the flash on the phone, so when we go in here it's gonna be almost pitch black. By the way, there is like some like powder residue, you see it at the bottom right there, just floating around inside of the catalytic converter. Anyway, okay, so it's gonna get dark, and right now I'm gonna go ahead and put the light source on. And guys, you can't see anything, right? That light should be shining through right now. We can't see anything, but I noticed that if you catch the right angle, it'll look like a little star in the night. And there we have it right there, guys. You see like that little dot almost in the center of the screen? It almost looks like a star in the sky. That's the light source coming from behind the filter. I'm gonna go ahead and turn my flashlight off, and we'll see it disappear. It's off, and now it's on. See it? Off, on. Just goes to show how restricted this catalytic converter is, that not even a light source can get through it. 100% confirmed, this catalytic converter is restricted. It needs to get replaced. But here's the thing, where my sister lives, I'm not sure if she has to do emissions where she lives. Anyway, I'm not saying it shouldn't get replaced. Of course, 100% this thing has to get replaced. But what I'm thinking is we could go ahead and hollow out this catalytic converter. I mean, it doesn't work, right? We're not causing any damage that isn't already there. By me hollowing it out, at least the car would be drivable. It would drive like normal. It'd have all its power back. The worst case scenario is she's gonna have a check engine light for a catalyst efficiency, a 420 code, and that's it. It'll just be a check engine light, but the car would drive normal. And in the event that she does have to do emissions where she lives, and she cares about having that check engine light off, take it into a shop or wherever, the dealer, and get a catalytic converter put on it, and that'll be it. So I just got off the phone with her, and just as I suspected, where they live, they don't have to do emissions, so it's not really a big deal. I told her, you know, put a sticker over your freaking check engine light, you know. I told her if we do this, the car would go back to its previous state. It would drive normal. It would have all of its power. And in the event that it ever does have to do emissions for whatever reason, then at that point, take it in and get the catalytic converter replaced. That's it. If this were my car, this is the option I would do. You know what I'm saying? Especially if I'm not being forced to do emissions, then yeah, who cares? You get what I'm saying? But if you're being forced to do emissions, you got no choice but to replace this thing as soon as possible. So we're gonna go ahead and hollow this thing out. Now, here's the thing. I don't wanna start destroying the honeycomb material on the inside and pushing it back, because it may get caught inside of that resonator right there. I don't want that. So what I'm gonna attempt to do is lay it flat, right? So it's completely like parallel to the ground, and start, you know, hammering or just destroying that honeycomb material inside of there, and make sure we tilt it forward so that all the stuff comes out the front and not the back. I hope that makes sense. This is interesting. I've never done this before, believe it or not. But this material is like rock hard. I don't know, I expected it to kind of be soft, but it's not. It's almost like you're hitting like ceramic. I mean, I'm sure it has some ceramic. I don't need you guys even to comment, so I'm gonna say right now, I don't know the makeup of all of this. I know it's all kinds of like precious metals and blah blah blah, and I'm sure everything I'm knocking out of here is worth money, but I'm not doing any of that. I don't steal catalytic converters, you get what I'm saying? So yeah, it's a lot tougher than I was expecting. All right, so here I have the biggest drill bit that I own. Let's see what that'll do. Oh, it's eating right through it like butter. You know what? I'm gonna put on a mask. I think it's a safety to put on a respirator. I think there's actually two filter materials in this thing. Let me point that out to you. Which it makes sense now that I think about it and that I look at it. I know someone left that comment already when I was saying that there's one filter material, but I believe that there is two. You didn't think I wouldn't turn on the car without a muffler, did you? I'm just joking. I got other work that has to get in the garage, and unfortunately I can't finish this one up right now. So I'm gonna have to park it, and I'll keep working on the catalytic converter, and then I'll put it back together once I'm done. So here's where I'm at. I basically removed only the front half of the catalytic converter, so all of this is completely gone. This one back here is still intact, and this is everything that came out so far. That's a lot of material. It's like a catalytic converter thief's wet dream right there. If you look inside of here, you can see the whole first filter is completely gone. So now to just get out that second one. And in all reality, it could have been only the first one that was restricted, but this catalytic converter with half of it missing, it's already not going to do its job. So we might as well take out the second failure point and just get rid of it completely. And like I always say, never do a half-ass job, okay? Always do the whole ass job. There we have it. That's a ton of material right there. The second filter came out easier than the first one. And if we look inside of here, you can see it's completely hollowed out. And I made sure all of it came out the front right here. I didn't push any of it into the back. So I'm just gonna go ahead and blow it out with some compressed air. And that'll be it. It's ready to go back on the car. I got the car back in the garage. It's up on the ramps. Let me go ahead and put the exhaust back on it. I'll put the pressure tester on that upstream oxygen sensor once again, and we'll test it. And this time you're gonna see how we're not gonna have any back pressure when we raise the RPM. So I'd rather not do it because I know this is gonna fix the problem, but for the sake of, you know, the naysayers and the YouTube video, gotta put in the extra work. All right, so I got the exhaust system reconnected on the car. I got the downstream sensor installed, and the gauge is installed back in the upstream so we could check the pressure. I'm gonna go ahead and start up the car right now. So far the needle is not bouncing around, which is very good. The engine's running. I'm gonna go ahead and raise the RPM. You see how the needle is barely moving? Sorry guys, I think the gauge is sliding down the windshield. Look at that. That was like 5,000 RPM right there. That needle is barely moving. This thing is fixed. So let me go ahead and reconnect that upstream oxygen sensor and pretty much take it out for a test drive. So I've been driving the Tucson around the block for about 10 minutes and it's been absolutely perfect. None of that crap that we had going on before. It feels like it has all of its power, and when you hit the accelerator pedal, it just goes. So what I want to do now, the final test, is let's get on the expressway, and I can't remember last time, but I think it was like 56, 55 miles per hour. It wouldn't go over, or 65, I can't remember. I'll look at the footage. But let's see how it accelerates on the expressway now. All right guys, so we're cruising right at about 55 right now. No problems at all getting to 55. Let me go ahead and switch lanes and we'll start to accelerate. And I'm not gonna lie, this little 4-cylinder, I mean, it really pulls this small SUV along. No problems at all. I'm not flowing it, by the way. I'm just trying to like gradually accelerate, and look at that, we're about to hit 80 miles per hour. No problems at all.
I'm gonna go ahead and slow down because I'm not one for speeding. I don't like doing it, and this was just for the purpose of testing the vehicle, and I'd say this thing is fixed 100%. No issues at all like we had during the first test drive, and it's driving pretty good. So let's go back to the garage and park this thing. My sister can come pick this turd up and it'll be all set.